The morning sun had just started to rise over the small town, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. The narrow street where Ravi lived was already alive with sounds. Bicycles creaking, a milkman calling out, and children running barefoot, laughing on their way to school. Ravi stood outside his little workshop, wiping the grease off his hands with an old cloth. The shop was nothing more than a tin roof shed with a faded board that read, Ravi Auto Repairs. It had been his world for almost 10 years. He opened the shutters slowly, the metal screeching as if groaning from the effort. Inside, tools were scattered on a wooden table, spare parts piled up in corners, and a single light bulb hung loosely from the ceiling. It wasn't much, but for Ravi it was everything. He looked at the old radio sitting on the shelf and turned it on. A familiar song played, a reminder of simpler times. Ravi smiled faintly and began preparing for the day. He filled a small kettle with water from a plastic bottle and placed it on the stove. His wife, Meena, would be bringing his breakfast soon, as she did every morning. The first customer of the day arrived before Ravi could even drink his tea. It was a delivery boy with a broken motorcycle, one that had seen better days. "Paya, it won't start again," the boy said nervously. Ravi nodded and got to work without asking too many questions. Within half an hour, the engine coughed back to life. When the boy hesitated to pay, saying he would come back later, Ravi just smiled and said, "Pay me when you can. You have work to do." That was who Ravi was, a man who helped first and thought about money later. People in the neighborhood knew him for that. Some said he was too soft-hearted for this world. Others said he'd never make a fortune because he didn't know how to say no. But Ravi didn't care much for fortune. He cared about doing what was right. When Meena arrived with breakfast, a few chapatis and some vegetable curry, she looked tired. Her eyes fell on the empty jar where she usually kept coins from the day's earnings. "Ravi, did that boy pay you?" she asked quietly. "Not yet," Ravi said without meeting her eyes. "He said he'll bring it later," Meena sighed. "You say that every week. Later never comes. We have to pay rent tomorrow." Ravi wiped his hands and sat down beside her. "I know," he said softly. "But what can I do? He's just a kid trying to earn his meal. I can't refuse to help him." Meena looked at him for a moment. She loved his kind heart but worried about how they would survive on kindness alone. Their son Aman was 10 years old and studied in a nearby school. His fees were overdue and the school had sent a reminder the previous week. After breakfast, Meena left for her job at a tailor's shop, and Ravi returned to work. Customers came and went throughout the day. Rickshaw drivers, truckers, and a few local residents. Some paid in full, some half, and some promised to pay next time. By evening, Ravi had earned just enough to buy groceries for dinner. As the sun began to set, Ravi sat outside the shop, looking at the busy road. He often wondered what it would be like to have a proper garage with better tools and enough money to keep everything organized. He dreamed of teaching other young mechanics someday, but dreams were like stars, beautiful, distant, and far beyond his reach. A soft breeze blew and dust swirled across the road. The sound of horns and chatter filled the air. Ravi closed his shop early that day and walked home slowly. Their small one-room house stood at the end of a narrow lane. The walls were old, and the roof leaked whenever it rained heavily. Still, it was home. A man ran to him as soon as he entered. "Papa, my teacher said we have a science fair next week. Can I join?" Ravi smiled, placing his hand on his son's head. "Of course, Beta. You should always take part. What do you need?" "Just some cardboard and wires," Aman said excitedly. Ravi nodded. "We'll get them this weekend." Meena, who was cooking on a small gas stove, overheard the conversation. "You say yes to everything," she muttered. "Do you even know how we'll buy those things?" Ravi didn't answer. He just smiled at his son and said, "Don't worry. We'll manage." Dinner was simple, rice, lentils, and a few vegetables. After they ate, Ravi sat outside on the small porch looking at the night sky. The stars shimmered faintly above the dark town. Life was hard, yes, but there was peace in small things. The laughter of his son, the warmth of a meal, and the quiet satisfaction of honest work. Sometimes, late at night, he would think about the road that brought him here. Years ago, he had worked as a helper in a big garage in the city. The owner was kind but strict. Ravi had learned everything there: how to fix engines, how to talk to customers, how to work with patience. But when the garage closed down due to losses, he was left jobless. He returned to his hometown, determined to start something of his own. With a little savings and a lot of courage, he opened his tiny workshop. The first few months were full of struggle. There were days when he didn't earn even enough to buy food. But slowly, people began to trust his work. They said he was honest and skilled, and that was enough to keep his shop alive. Even now, after years of hard work, he still earned just enough to survive. Yet he never let greed take root in his heart. When he saw someone in need, he couldn't turn them away. God will take care of us, he always told Mina. Though deep down, he sometimes wondered how much longer he could keep saying that. That night, as he lay on the floor beside his sleeping son, Ravi listened to the sound of distant traffic and the ticking of the old wall clock. His mind was filled with thoughts about the rent due tomorrow, the unpaid bills, the science fair, and the uncertain future. But even with all these worries, a small part of him still believed that good things happen to good people. Maybe not right away, but someday. The next morning came quickly. The air was cooler and the sky looked heavy with clouds. Ravi opened his shop early, hoping to finish some pending repairs before it started to rain. As he worked, he noticed fewer people on the road than usual. The wind picked up speed, carrying dust and leaves through the air. By noon, the first drops of rain began to fall. Ravi moved some of the bikes inside and covered the rest with plastic sheets. Business was slow that day, and by evening he was tired and wet. Still, he stayed open, waiting for any last-minute customer who might need help. Just as he was about to close, he saw a shiny black car slowing down near his shop. It was an expensive model, one that rarely passed through their small town. The car suddenly stopped, its engine sputtering before going completely silent. The door opened and a man stepped out holding an umbrella. He looked out of place in that neighborhood, wearing a crisp suit and polished shoes. Ravi walked over, wiping his hands on his cloth. "Car trouble, sir?" he asked politely. The man nodded, frowning. "It just stopped working. I don't know what's wrong. I have an important meeting in the city tomorrow." "Don't worry," Ravi said, bending down to check under the hood. Rainwater dripped from the edges of his hair as he worked. The man watched silently, surprised by the mechanic's calmness despite the weather. Ravi spent nearly an hour fixing the problem, tightening bolts and replacing a small fuse. Finally, the engine came back to life with a loud roar. The man's face relaxed with relief. "How much do I owe you?" he asked, pulling out his wallet. Ravi shook his head. "Just the cost of the fuse, sir." "Nothing more." The man looked at him in disbelief. "You worked in this rain for almost an hour. You deserve more." Ravi smiled. "Sir, helping someone when they're stuck, that's worth more to me than extra money." The man studied his face for a moment, as if trying to understand this rare kind of honesty. Then, without another word, he handed Ravi the money for the fuse and drove away. As the sound of the engine faded into the rain, Ravi stood there for a long time, water dripping from his clothes. He didn't know who that man was or what he did for a living. To him, it was just another repair job, another act of kindness on a rainy night. But what he didn't know was that the man he had just helped was not an ordinary customer. That meeting, born out of chance and compassion, was going to change his life in ways he could never have imagined. For now, though Ravi just closed his shop, smiled at the stormy sky, and whispered a quiet prayer of gratitude before heading home through the rain-soaked streets. The next morning, the rain hadn't stopped. The roads were muddy, the sky looked heavy, and water dripped from the roof of Ravi's small workshop. He came early as always, rolling up the shutters with a sleepy smile. The tin door rattled loudly as he lifted it, letting in the smell of wet soil. He swept the floor, arranged his tools, and turned on the old radio that was his only company through long days of work. Mina had packed him some leftover rice and pickle in a small steel box. Before leaving for her tailoring job, she had said softly, "Don't stay too late today. You've been getting drenched every evening." Ravi had nodded, but deep inside he knew that if someone needed help, he would stay, no matter the weather. By mid-morning, the rain turned into a drizzle. Customers came in slowly, mostly men whose bikes had stopped in the rain. Ravi worked quietly, his hands moving with practice and patience. Despite his soaked clothes, there was something peaceful about fixing things, about bringing a broken machine back to life. Around noon, a local bus driver stopped by with a flat tire. While changing it, Ravi noticed a small boy watching him from across the road. The boy held a broken toy car in his hand. Ravi called him over. "What's wrong with your car, champ?" he asked with a grin. "It doesn't move anymore," the boy said shyly. Ravi took the toy, examined it, and quickly fixed one of the loose wheels. "Try it now." The boy's face lit up as the little car rolled across the floor. "Thank you, uncle," he shouted and ran off. Ravi laughed softly to himself. It was moments like that which made his hard days easier to bear. As the afternoon passed, the rain began again, harder this time. Ravi stood by the door, watching vehicles splash through the puddles. The wind blew sideways, making it impossible to stay dry. He thought about closing early, but something inside told him to wait a little longer. It was almost evening when he saw a familiar black car coming slowly down the street, the same luxury car he had repaired the night before. But this time it wasn't stopping at his workshop. It passed by smoothly, engine humming perfectly. Ravi smiled, pleased to see that his repair had held up. He didn't expect to see that car again, and he didn't think much about the man driving it. But fate works in quiet ways. That very night, just as Ravi was about to shut the doors of his workshop, another car, a silver one this time, rolled to a stop a few meters away. Its headlights cut through the rain, and the sound of the failing engine echoed faintly. Ravi hesitated for a moment. It was already late, and he was soaked and tired. Still, he grabbed his wrench and stepped out into the rain. A man stepped out of the car, holding a briefcase and looking frustrated. His shoes sank into the muddy water. "It just stopped all of a sudden," he said, raising his voice over the sound of the rain. Ravi nodded. "Don't worry, sir. I'll take a look." The man followed him as Ravi lifted the hood and examined the engine. The rain poured harder, dripping down his neck, but he didn't stop. He checked the plugs, replaced a small fuse, and cleaned the battery terminals. The man stood there under an umbrella, watching him closely. There was something about this mechanic, the calmness with which he worked, the focus in his eyes, and the quiet pride in his craft. After nearly 40 minutes, Ravi turned the key. The engine roared to life again. He smiled faintly and closed the hood. "It's done, sir," he said. "The water got into the fuse connection, that's all." The man let out a long sigh of relief. "Thank you. I didn't think anyone would help me at this hour." Ravi just shrugged. "When someone's in trouble, you help. That's how it should be." The man reached into his wallet and pulled out several notes. "Here, this is for your time. You've saved me." But Ravi stepped back and shook his head. "Just pay for the fuse, sir." "Nothing more," the man frowned. "That's hardly anything for what you did." "It's late, you're standing in the rain. Take this, please." Ravi smiled, his face tired but kind. "Sir, I'm not doing this for extra money. I fix cars. That's my job. You've already paid for the part, and that's enough." For a few seconds, the man just looked at him. His soaked clothes, his worn-out slippers, the dim light from the workshop behind him. There was something pure about this man's honesty, something rare. "May I know your name?" the man asked finally. "Ravi," he said simply. "Ravi Kumar." The man nodded thoughtfully. "Thank you, Ravi. You've done more than you know." He got into his car and drove away, the red taillights fading into the rain. Ravi watched until the car disappeared. Then he turned off the lights and locked his shop. His body ached from the long day, but inside he felt strangely peaceful. He had helped someone again, and that was enough. When he reached home, Meena scolded him gently for staying out late again. "You'll catch a cold one of these days," she said, handing him a towel. Ravi smiled wearily and said, "It was just another car." They ate dinner quietly, rice and lentils again, and Ravi told her about the man he helped. "He wanted to pay me extra," he said, "but I couldn't take it. It didn't feel right." Meena shook her head, half frustrated, half amused. "One day your honesty will bring you trouble," she said softly. Ravi laughed. "Or maybe it will bring us luck." The next few days passed normally. The rain finally stopped, the streets began to dry, and life returned to its usual rhythm. Ravi worked long hours, earning little but staying content. Sometimes, when he sat outside the shop during his lunch break, he thought about that man in the silver car. He wondered where he was going that night, what kind of life he lived. The man had seemed educated, rich, maybe someone important. But Ravi didn't dwell on it. To him, everyone who needed help was the same. Rich or poor, it didn't matter. One afternoon, as Ravi was fixing a scooter, a man in a uniform approached his shop. He held an envelope in his hand. "Are you Ravi Kumar?" he asked. "Yes, that's me." Ravi replied, wiping his hands. "This is for you," the man said, handing over the envelope before walking away. Ravi frowned, surprised. He opened it carefully and found a neatly folded letter inside. The letter was printed on thick paper with a company logo at the top. He read slowly, his eyes widening with every line. The letter said that Mr. Arjun Mehta, CEO of Silverline Motors, wanted to meet him personally. It mentioned a date and address, the company's head office in the city. Ravi stood there for a long time, holding the letter as if it were made of gold. He read it again just to be sure it was real. Meena, who had stopped by with his lunch, noticed his expression. "What happened?" she asked, concerned. He handed her the letter. "Some company wants to meet me," he said softly. "The CEO himself." Meena looked at the letter and gasped. "CEO, why? Did something go wrong with one of your repairs?" Ravi shook his head slowly. "No, I don't think so. Maybe it's about that car I fixed the other night." For the rest of the day, Ravi couldn't focus on work. His hands moved, but his mind was elsewhere. What could a man like that possibly want from a small-town mechanic like him? That night after dinner, Ravi sat quietly, staring at the letter again. Aman sat beside him, looking curious. "Papa, are you going to the city?" "Yes," Ravi said with a small smile. "Someone wants to meet me there. Will you bring me a toy car when you come back?" Aman asked eagerly. Ravi laughed and nodded. "Of course." 2 days later, he put on his cleanest shirt, a faded blue one Meena had ironed carefully, and took the early morning bus to the city. The ride was long, and the noise of the traffic made him uneasy. He wasn't used to the big city anymore. The tall buildings, the fast cars, the rush of people, it all felt like another world. When he reached the address mentioned in the letter, he stood frozen for a few moments. The building was huge, made of glass and steel, with the words Silverline Motors shining proudly at the top. He hesitated at the gate, wondering if someone like him even belonged there. A security guard asked his name, checked a list, and nodded. "They're expecting you, sir," he said politely. "Sir?" The word sounded strange to Ravi's ears. He followed the guard inside, his heart beating fast. The lobby was bright and spotless, filled with people in suits talking on phones. Ravi felt small and out of place. An assistant led him to a large office on the top floor. Behind the desk sat the same man he had helped that rainy night, the man with the silver car. He wasn't wearing a suit now, just a simple shirt, but his presence filled the room. He looked up and smiled warmly. "Ravi, I'm so glad you came." Ravi stood awkwardly at the door. "Sir, I got your letter. I wasn't sure if it was real." "It's very real," the man said, standing up and shaking his hand. "Please sit. I owe you more than you think." Ravi sat slowly, his heart racing. He couldn't imagine what a man like this could owe him. But deep down, he felt that something extraordinary was about to happen. Something that might finally change the course of his simple, struggling life forever. Ravi sat in front of the man, still unsure why he had been called to such a grand place. The office smelled faintly of coffee and fresh paper. Large glass windows behind the desk showed a view of the busy city below. The man, Arjun Mehta, smiled at him warmly. "I didn't expect you to come all the way from your town," Arjun said, leaning forward. "But I'm glad you did." Ravi looked down, his hands folded nervously. "Sir, I got your letter, but I wasn't sure why you wanted to meet me. I just fixed your car that night. It was nothing special." Arjun chuckled softly. "Nothing special? Do you know how rare it is to find someone who helps a stranger in the rain and refuses extra money? You could have charged me a lot more, but you didn't. You reminded me of something I had forgotten a long time ago." Ravi looked up, confused but touched. "Sir, I only did what anyone should do." "That's the thing," Arjun said. "Not everyone does what they should. Most people today think only about themselves. But your honesty, your kindness, it stayed with me. I couldn't forget it." Ravi didn't know what to say. He shifted in his chair, glancing at the polished floor. The whole place made him feel small and out of place. Arjun noticed his unease and smiled again. "You don't have to be nervous, Ravi. I didn't call you here for any trouble. I wanted to thank you properly, and maybe do something for you in return." Ravi shook his head quickly. "Sir, please, you don't owe me anything. I was happy to help." Arjun stood up and walked around the desk. "Ravi, tell me about your work. You run a small garage, right?" "Yes, sir," Ravi said. "It's just a small shop. I've been running it for about 10 years now." Business is slow, but I manage. Arjun nodded thoughtfully. Do you have helpers? Not anymore, Ravi replied. I used to, but I couldn't pay them regularly, so they left. Now I work alone. Arjun crossed his arms, thinking, would you ever consider expanding your garage, maybe turning it into a proper service center? Ravi gave a short, surprised laugh. Sir, that sounds wonderful, but people like me can't dream that big. I don't have the money or the tools. I barely make enough to pay rent. Arjun smiled faintly. Sometimes money isn't the problem. Sometimes it's about the right opportunity. Before Ravi could reply, Arjun called someone on the intercom. Can you bring in the files we discussed yesterday? He said. Within minutes, an assistant entered with a folder and handed it to Arjun. Arjun opened it and placed a few documents on the table in front of Ravi. This, he said, is a proposal. My company is starting a new initiative. We're planning to open small authorized service centers in different towns, places where people can get quality repairs at fair prices. I want you to run one of them. Ravi stared at him, not fully understanding. Me? But sir, I don't have a degree or any big experience. I'm just a mechanic, Arjun smiled. That's exactly why I want you. You have something that can't be taught in any school. Honesty, skill, and heart. I've seen people with qualifications who don't have even half of that. Ravi felt a lump in his throat. Sir, I don't know what to say. Say yes, Arjun said gently. We'll help you with everything. Equipment, branding, even some staff training. You'll still be your own boss, but under our network. You'll earn more and your customers will trust you even more. For a moment, Ravi couldn't speak. His mind raced with images. His small workshop turned into a real garage. Mina's tired smile turning into pride. Aman studying without worry. It all felt too good to be true. Sir, are you sure? He asked softly. Why me? Arjun looked out the window for a second before replying. Because I used to be like you. My father was a mechanic too. He taught me that no job is small if you do it with honesty. Somewhere along the way I forgot that. That night when you helped me without expecting anything, I remembered my father and the values he stood for. You reminded me of where I came from. Ravi felt his eyes sting with emotion. He looked down quickly, trying to hide it. Thank you, sir, he said quietly. I don't know how to thank you. You already have, Arjun said with a warm smile. Just keep being who you are. They spoke for another hour. Arjun explained the details. How the company would help set up the workshop, supply spare parts, and even provide a small loan if needed. Ravi listened carefully, though he still couldn't believe it was happening. When he left the office, the world outside looked different. The same city that had made him feel small now seemed full of hope. He walked slowly to the bus station, the letter of confirmation in his pocket, protected from the drizzle that had started again. Back home, Mina was waiting anxiously. What happened? Did you meet him? She asked as soon as he walked in. Ravi handed her the papers. Read this, he said softly. She opened the folder and scanned the pages, her eyes widening with every line. Ravi, this says they're giving you a new garage. Is this real? Ravi nodded, smiling for the first time in a long while. It's real. I still don't understand why he chose me, but he did. Mina sat down slowly, tears filling her eyes. You always said kindness never goes to waste. Maybe this is the proof. A man who had been doing his homework in the corner ran up and hugged his father. Papa, does this mean we'll have a big garage now? Ravi laughed and hugged him tightly. Yes, Beta, a big one, and you'll help me when you grow up. The next few weeks were like a dream. Company representatives visited Ravi's old workshop, took measurements, and made plans for renovation. They replaced the rusted tools, painted the walls, and installed new machines. The old signboard was taken down and a shiny new one replaced it. Silverline Service Center. Authorized partner, Ravi Kumar. People in the neighborhood couldn't believe it. Customers who had once bargained for every rupee now congratulated him warmly. Some said he was lucky. Others said it was his good heart that brought this miracle. Ravi just smiled humbly and said, It's all God's blessing. When the new garage finally opened, Arjun himself came to cut the ribbon. The whole town gathered to watch. Ravi stood beside him, his shirt neatly pressed, his hands trembling slightly from pride and disbelief. As the ribbon was cut and everyone clapped, Arjun turned to him and said quietly, Remember, Ravi, this is just the beginning. Keep your values alive and this place will grow more than you can imagine. Ravi nodded, his eyes moist. I'll never forget, sir. You've changed my life, Arjun smiled. No, Ravi. You changed your life the moment you chose kindness over greed. The next few months were busy but joyful. Business grew quickly. Ravi hired 2 young boys from the town to help him, both from poor families who had been looking for work. He taught them patiently, just as he had once been taught. He paid them fairly and treated them with respect. Meena began keeping the accounts, and Aman proudly told his friends that his father now owned a real garage. Life had turned around in ways they could never have imagined. Yet, even with all the success, Ravi never changed. He still repaired small bikes for free when someone couldn't afford it. He still worked late some nights, covered in grease but smiling. He still greeted every customer with warmth, whether it was a man in a suit or a rickshaw driver. One evening, as he was closing the shop, Arjun's car stopped by again. He stepped out, smiling as always. How's business, Ravi? Ravi grinned. Better than I ever dreamed, sir. People trust us now. They say this place feels different from other garages. Arjun nodded. That's because it's built on honesty, not just machines. Ravi looked around at his shining workshop, the hum of engines, the laughter of his helpers, and felt a deep peace inside. Sir, I can't thank you enough for what you did for me. Arjun put a hand on his shoulder. You already did the day you refused to take extra money. Remember, good deeds don't disappear. They find their way back when you least expect them. As the car drove away, Ravi stood at the doorway, watching the sunset over his town. The same man who once struggled to pay rent now ran a garage that brought jobs, trust and pride to his community. He didn't become rich overnight, but he had something far greater: respect, peace, and a heart full of gratitude. He looked up at the sky and whispered a silent thank you, to God, to fate, and to the kindness that had come full circle. The night breeze carried the smell of oil and fresh paint. The lights from his workshop glowed softly, a symbol of how one act of goodness could light up an entire life. And as he locked the doors for the night, Ravi smiled to himself. The journey that had started in the rain wasn't over yet. In fact, it had just begun. Months passed and Ravi's service center became a cornerstone in the community. What had started as a small garage now stood as a bustling, well-organized hub for cars and motorcycles. People from surrounding towns came to him for repairs, word of mouth spreading like wildfire. Even the shop's location, once considered out of the way, became part of the charm. Nestled near a quiet road with trees that formed a canopy overhead. Ravi had come a long way from the days of struggling to make ends meet, and with every passing day he felt a quiet satisfaction he hadn't known before. His life had changed, but not just because of the business success. He had learned something deeper, that good people who stay true to themselves always find their way in the end. Even with everything going so well, Ravi never forgot the values that had brought him here. He didn't let the success change him. He still took time to fix small problems for those who couldn't afford repairs. He still treated every customer like a friend, always greeting them with a smile and a warm handshake. Meena had become the heart of the office. Her tidy handwriting and careful accounting skills helped keep everything organized. She wasn't just handling the finances anymore. She was also meeting with clients, helping run the front desk, and making sure the garage always felt welcoming. Ravi couldn't have asked for a better partner. Though business had picked up, there were challenges along the way. Competition started to grow and some new service centers popped up in nearby areas. But Ravi didn't worry much. His customers were loyal and they appreciated the quality and honesty of his work. Then, one afternoon, a young man named Raj came into the garage. He looked about 20, dressed in a tattered shirt and worn-out shoes, his face marked with exhaustion. He had a small motorcycle with a leaking engine. Ravi could tell from the way he held the bike that it wasn't just a repair he needed. It was a bit of hope. Raj asked, "Sir, can you fix this?" "It's all I have." Ravi smiled gently, wiping his hands on a rag. "Let's take a look." As he examined the bike, Raj stood beside him, shifting uncomfortably. Ravi noticed the young man's anxious eyes and guessed there was more to his story. "Don't worry, this will be fine," Ravi assured him, looking up. Raj hesitated, then spoke. "I've been trying to get work at different shops for months, but no one will hire me. I don't have experience. All I want is to work somewhere, do something." Ravi stopped what he was doing and studied him for a moment. He could see the desperation in Raj's face. He was young, eager, and had a willingness to learn. But more than that, Ravi saw something in him that reminded him of his younger self. The hunger to do something good, to make a living with his own hands. "Listen," Ravi said, handing the bike back to Raj. "I'll fix this for you. But I also have an idea. How would you like to work here? I could use an extra hand and you look like you're willing to learn." Raj's eyes widened in surprise. "You mean it?" "Of course," Ravi replied. "You can start small, learning the ropes. We'll teach you and I'll pay you fairly." Raj nearly jumped with excitement. "I won't let you down, sir, thank you." From that day, Raj became part of the team. At first, he made small mistakes, which was expected. But Ravi patiently showed him how to fix the simplest things, guiding him like a mentor. Raj learned quickly, and his confidence grew with every repair. Soon he was handling tasks on his own and even started to take on more complicated jobs. What Ravi didn't realize was how much Raj's presence would affect the shop's atmosphere. The young man's enthusiasm was contagious. He brought a new energy to the team, and even Meena noticed the change. One evening after a long day of work, Meena sat with Ravi, who was cleaning his tools. She spoke quietly. "You know, I think Raj is going to be a big help. He's got a good heart just like you." Ravi nodded. "I hope he keeps working hard. He reminds me of how I started, just trying to make things work with nothing but hope." Meena smiled. "It's funny, isn't it? We started with almost nothing and now look at us. A real service center, a team, and a future." Ravi chuckled, leaning back in his chair. "I don't know if I can still believe it. It feels like just yesterday I was working alone, fixing bikes in the rain." Meena placed a hand on his. "That's the thing. You're never alone, Ravi. You've always had people who believed in you even if they didn't know it. And now, we've built something good together." As the days went on, the business continued to flourish. More customers came, and the reputation of Ravi's service center spread. Word of mouth and trust were the driving forces behind the shop's success. And with each passing month, Ravi's dream of helping others just as he had been helped grew stronger. One afternoon, a man walked into the service center, wearing a sharp suit and carrying a briefcase. Ravi looked up and saw the man approach. His heart skipped a beat. It was Arjun Mehta, the CEO who had given him his big break. "Good afternoon." "Ravi," Arjun greeted him, his voice friendly as always. Ravi stood up immediately, slightly surprised to see him. "Sir, I wasn't expecting you. Is everything okay with the company?" Arjun smiled. "Everything's fine. I came by to check on how things are going for you." "I've heard great things." Ravi smiled shyly. "Business is good, thanks to your help. I'm just trying to keep everything running smoothly." Arjun took a seat across from him. "I'm glad to hear that. But there's something I wanted to discuss. You've done so well with the garage, and I can see how committed you are. I was thinking, it might be time to take the next step." Ravi raised an eyebrow. "Next step? What do you mean?" Arjun leaned in slightly. "I'm offering you an opportunity. We're expanding our network of service centers, and I'd like you to head one of the new locations. We're going to open a bigger center in a more developed area, and I believe you're ready for that kind of responsibility." Ravi sat back in his chair, his heart racing. "Sir, I'm honored, but I've only been running this shop for a few months. I don't know if I'm ready for something that big." Arjun smiled. "That's exactly why I'm offering it to you. You have the honesty, the skill, and the heart to make it work. Don't worry about the details. We'll handle the logistics. I'm confident you can manage a bigger team, handle the growth, and still maintain the quality that makes your service center unique." Ravi's mind was spinning. He had never expected an opportunity like this. A bigger center? More staff? A larger area to serve customers? It felt like a dream. But at the same time, it felt like the natural next step. "I don't know what to say," Ravi murmured. "This is all moving so fast." Arjun chuckled. "I understand. But think of it this way. It's a chance to grow, to impact more people. You've already made a difference in your community. Why not make a difference in more places?" Ravi was quiet for a while, weighing the options. He thought about how far he had come, from struggling to pay the rent to running a successful service center with a team he was proud of. The opportunity Arjun was offering could change everything. "All right, sir," Ravi said finally, his voice steady. "I'll take it." Arjun smiled, standing up. "I knew you would. I'm proud of you, Ravi. This is just the beginning. As Arjun left the service center, Ravi sat there for a moment, letting the weight of the decision settle in. His heart raced not with fear but with excitement. He had come a long way, and now he was about to step into a new chapter of his life, one that would not only challenge him, but also give him the chance to help even more people. The next day, Ravi sat with Meena and Raj to discuss the big news. He explained the opportunity that had come his way, and both of them were just as excited as he was. "You're ready for this, Ravi," Meena said, squeezing his hand. "We've always done things the right way, and we'll keep doing that no matter how big this becomes." Raj nodded eagerly. "I'll do whatever I can to help." Ravi smiled at both of them. "We'll do it together, every step of the way." And with that, they began to make plans for the new center. It was going to be bigger, busier, and more challenging. But Ravi was ready for it. Months turned into a year, and Ravi's life had changed in ways he could never have imagined. The new service center was larger, brighter, and busier than anything he had ever dreamed of. Rows of vehicles waited every morning, and a team of skilled mechanics worked under his guidance. The once poor mechanic who had struggled to pay rent now ran one of the most trusted garages in the region. Every morning, Ravi arrived early as he always had, still wearing his old shirt and cap, the same ones from his days in the small workshop. His habits hadn't changed. He still cleaned his tools himself, greeted his workers with warmth, and made sure no customer left unhappy. Success hadn't made him proud. It had made him more humble. Meena now handled much of the business side. She sat in the small office, going through bills, talking to suppliers, and keeping everything organized. She carried herself with quiet pride, knowing how far they had come. Sometimes she would look at Ravi from her desk, watching him work with his team, and think back to the nights they had gone to bed hungry. Those days felt like a lifetime ago, but she never forgot them. A man was now in a better school studying hard. He had grown taller, more confident. Whenever people asked what his father did, he smiled and said proudly, "My father runs Silverline Service Center." The pride in his voice made Ravi's heart swell every time he heard it. One sunny afternoon, Arjun visited the center again. It had been months since they last met. He stepped out of his car, smiling as he looked around. The place was busy but well run. Workers greeted him respectfully as he made his way toward Ravi, who was bent over a car engine. "Still working with your own hands, Ravi," Arjun teased as he approached. Ravi looked up, surprised but happy. "Sir, I didn't know you were coming today." "I wanted to see how my favorite mechanic is doing," Arjun said with a grin. "Looks like you don't need my help anymore," Ravi laughed. "I'll always need your guidance, sir. None of this would have been possible without you." Arjun looked around with satisfaction. "You've done wonders here, Ravi. The place is spotless and the customers seem happy. You've built something honest, and that's rare." Ravi smiled. "It's all because of what you taught me, sir. You trusted me when I was just a mechanic in a small shop. I'll never forget that." Arjun placed a hand on his shoulder. "I didn't do much. I just gave you a chance. You did the hard work, and you did it the right way." The two men sat in Ravi's small office, drinking tea and talking about life. Arjun told him about his company's plans for expansion, and Ravi shared his dreams of training young people who couldn't afford formal education. "I want to teach them the way I learned, through experience," Ravi said earnestly. "There are so many boys like Raj who just need someone to believe in them." Arjun nodded approvingly. "That's a wonderful idea. If you want, we can even create a small training program through Silverline Motors. You can run it. We'll help fund it." Ravi's eyes lit up. "Really, sir? That would change so many lives," Arjun smiled. "Consider it done. You've proven that one act of kindness can create a chain reaction. Let's keep it going." Over the next few months, Ravi worked with Arjun's team to start the new training program. Young men from nearby villages began joining the workshop to learn about repairing engines, servicing vehicles, and most importantly, working with honesty. Ravi taught them with patience, just as he had once been taught. He told them, "Skill will get you work, but honesty will make people remember you." The program became a success. Newspapers even wrote small articles about it, about how a poor mechanic had become an inspiration to others. Ravi didn't care much about the fame, but seeing his trainees find jobs and support their families made him happier than any newspaper story ever could. One evening, After closing the workshop, Ravi sat outside with Meena and Aman. The sun was setting, and a gentle breeze carried the smell of oil and dust, scents that had followed him all his life. Meena handed him a cup of tea and Aman sat beside him, playing with a small toy car. "Papa," Aman said suddenly, "when I grow up, I want to build cars like the ones you fix." Ravi smiled. "That's a good dream, beta. You'll do even better than me." Meena looked at him and said softly, "You know, Ravi, you've come so far. Sometimes I still can't believe it. Remember when we used to worry about paying rent?" Ravi nodded, his eyes thoughtful. "Those days made us who we are, Meena. I'll never forget them. They taught me that no matter how hard life gets, kindness always finds its way back." They sat in silence for a while, watching the orange glow fade into twilight. A few weeks later, Silverline Motors organized an award ceremony in the city to honor employees and partners who had made exceptional contributions. Ravi was invited as a special guest. When he arrived at the grand hall, he felt nervous. The room was filled with well-dressed executives and bright lights. He felt out of place, but Arjun greeted him warmly and guided him to the front row. During the ceremony, the host began to speak about a story that had touched everyone in the company. "Tonight," the host said, "we celebrate not just success but values that define who we are. This next award goes to a man whose honesty and compassion remind us of why we started this company in the first place. A man who turned a small act of kindness into a movement that inspires hundreds. Please welcome Mr. Ravi Kumar." The room erupted in applause as Ravi stood up, startled. He walked slowly to the stage, his heart pounding. Arjun stood beside the host, smiling proudly as he handed Ravi a plaque that read, "For Excellence, Integrity and Humanity." As Ravi accepted the award, he looked at the crowd and spoke into the microphone, his voice trembling slightly. "I don't know if I deserve all this," he began. "I was just doing my job when I helped a man whose car broke down one night. I didn't know who he was. I just saw someone who needed help. That small moment changed my life. I learned that kindness doesn't need money or power. It only needs a willing heart. Everything that happened after that was because one person saw goodness in another." The room was silent, everyone listening intently. Ravi continued, "I've always believed that no work is small. Every job has dignity, and if we do it with honesty, it becomes a way to serve others. I thank Mr. Arjun for trusting me, for giving me the chance to prove myself, and I thank my family for believing in me when I had nothing." As he stepped down from the stage, many people came up to shake his hand. Some even told him how inspired they were by his words. But Ravi didn't think of himself as a hero. He was just a mechanic who believed in doing what was right. After the ceremony, Arjun joined him outside. "You spoke beautifully, Ravi. You moved everyone in that room," Ravi smiled. "I just spoke the truth, sir. Kindness brought me here. It's the least I could share." Arjun nodded. "You know, sometimes the simplest truths are the hardest to remember. You reminded all of us tonight." Months later, Ravi's training center expanded. New branches opened in nearby towns and more young people joined. Many of them came from poor backgrounds just like he once had. They called him Guruji out of respect, though Ravi always laughed and said, "I'm still a mechanic, not a teacher." Every now and then, Ravi would receive letters from his former trainees, young men who had started their own small workshops or found good jobs. They all wrote the same thing: "Thank you for believing in me." One morning, while drinking tea at his desk, Ravi looked around the busy workshop. The sound of tools, engines, and laughter filled the air. His heart was full. He remembered the night when it had all begun, the rain, the broken car, and the stranger who would later change his life. He often wondered what would have happened if he had turned that man away that night. Maybe he would still be struggling in his small shed, but life has a way of rewarding those who choose compassion over convenience. That evening, he stood outside the service center as the sun dipped below the horizon. The new signboard gleamed in the fading light, and the laughter of his workers echoed through the air. Meena and Aman joined him, watching as the first stars appeared in the sky. Ravi smiled softly and said, "You see, Meena, when we do good, it doesn't just come back to us, it keeps going, like a circle that never ends." She smiled back, holding his hand. "You were right all along. Kindness never goes to waste." As they stood there together, the lights from the workshop shone behind them. glowing warm and bright against the night sky. The poor mechanic who once had nothing now had everything that truly mattered: a loving family, honest work, and a legacy built not on wealth, but on goodness. And though life would bring new challenges and responsibilities, Ravi knew one thing for sure. His story was proof that even a small act of kindness can change the world, for someone else, and for yourself.